I think that's a beautiful thing to keep in mind, that, it's not even about, like I'm always saying, it's not about the outcome. It's about how we, submit to this transformation that's before us, this birthing of this baby before us. And I love that, like, preparation and the presence and perspective that you really just were going to, like, you know what, I'm going to let this be what it is, and prepare for what I can, right? But
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share home birth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
and me, holistic doula and birthkeeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
welcome to Holy Wild Birth. We have a birth story episode for you today. It's a little bit longer, and it's about shorter births. That's right. It's about precipitous births, and in about the length of time that myself and my guest have given birth to babies. We're going to give you not one birth story, but 6 birth stories. So maybe it's a long podcast, but in my opinion, it's pretty fast. So I hope that you will enjoy this kind of conversation. And instead of just a birth story, we really have wrapped our story around the topic of precipitous birth, and hopefully give you some insight if you are a precipitous birth mama, and just our perspective and our stories. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, and sit down and enjoy our stories.
As we dive into today's birth story, just a reminder that the choices and beliefs of the mamas sharing their stories here are as individual and varied as the storyteller herself, and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or recommended actions of Lauren and or Brooke.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So listeners, we have a dear friend, former student of mine on a maternity leave kind of break right now, and also a birth keeper, and her name is Jaclyn. She's also a fabulous mama, and we are here to talk a little bit about her story, but kind of a twist on this week's birth story. We're going to share a series of some of her birth stories, and maybe some of mine. And just a common theme in those birth stories is precipitous birth. So today is just talking about precipitous birth from the lens of birth stories. So I'm just going to let Jaclyn, thank you, welcome. And is there anything you want to share about who you are? Just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited. This is my first being on a podcast, and I listen to a lot of them, so I'm pretty excited. I'm a mom to 6 little ones, and I live in northern Canada, northern BC, Canada, and we homestead, so we do the milk cows and the farm life and the homeschooling and all that, and home birthing.
And the cheese making.
Right into that. Yes, cheese making, sourdough, ferments, The broth, the canning, all of it.
All the
It's
things.
good.
I just say it every time we would be on on my school's mentor calls, it would be Jaclyn back there and like on the video just making her cheese, listening in, enjoying the student call. Like, I was just like, I love this. It's awesome.
Yes. And copious amounts of milk being drank to keep me
Yep.
nourished as I was growing my 6th baby.
Yes, yes, good stuff. So, anyhow, so you have 6 babies. How many of those babies came via precipitous birth?
3 of them, my last 3. The
3 of
labor,
them.
yeah. So all of my labors have been wonderfully simple, natural births. Some in the hospital we have what we call registered midwives, similar to a licensed midwife. And then we moved away from the city where there was really no good birth options. And so I
Right.
started free birthing, and that's when they started becoming very quick when I
Yeah.
had no one to call and nowhere to go. And then my baby started coming in 4 hours, just under 4 hours was my 4th child. And then my 5th was an hour and 45 minutes. And then my 6th, she was just around 2 hours, 2.5. So
Okay.
those were fast.
So technically, by definition, you only have 2 precipitous births because it's actually under 3 hours
Okay.
by textbook.
Oh, I thought it was under
Just
4.
for, I mean, it might be different in BC. That could be, some textbooks vary. But I will say, for the nerds out there, by definition, a precipitous birth is 3 hours or less from what's considered active labor to baby.
Oh, okay.
So
that's first contraction to baby.
Right, exactly. So probably still precipitous, right? In the 4 hours.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, absolutely. So actually, how many hospital births did you have? Or
I had
were
2
you, or
hospital
just
births.
registered midwives? You had 2? Okay.
I had 2. They were planned home births, but the first
Okay.
one, the midwives were much more medical than I expected. And we decided they weren't very supportive of my first home birth. And so we chose the hospital kind of last minute. The second one, something with the registered midwives in our province is that they have to have 2 midwives attend. And my amazing midwife that time couldn't find a second midwife to attend. So last minute, we went to the hospital, did the thing,
Yeah.
checked out a few hours later, and then I had a home birth with registered midwives when I was still in the city.
Gotcha. And then you've had the other 3 were free births, right?
Yeah, with the support of my mom, who's a doula of 30 years, and she's pretty incredible. So my mom's been at all of my births and all of her grandchildren's births. She has 15 grandchildren. And so that's
fair. Living the life. Living the life.
I know, that's my dream.
Yeah. I love that our birth history is very, very similar. So I've also had 2 hospital births, my first and second, though they were planned that to be that way. And then all the rest were home births. 2 of mine are considered like textbook precipitous, and then 1 would have been precipitous. Except, and we'll get into that one maybe a little later, but like I intentionally slowed it down. And I know that, and honestly, if I'd had some checking or what I would consider active labor, I might be able to call it precipitous. So it's kind of like I have those 3 that were really fast, 4 that were at home, 2 in hospital. It's like the same. So it's very interesting. Very cool. Very cool. So I guess, like, what do you want to talk? You said you really wanted to talk about the topic of precipitous birth. So like, what is the first thing that really comes to your mind when you think your story of precipitous birth? You want to just tell your story and we can kind of like pull out some themes or
Yeah, well, my first one that was pretty fast, was my first free birth. And I remember going through the stages of labor much quicker. like I had my normal. I was laboring as per my normal, and my mom and my husband were supporting me in that way. And so we used to own an elementary school, so we had like the hallways that this baby was
Love it.
born in. And so she's trying to get me, we're like in early labor, right? Like the very beginning, I've just started contractions, and she's trying to get me to walk the halls because this is what we usually do. And I just walk away from her and go and find my birth ball and get in the zone. And she's like, wait, this isn't time. And then not very long after, I start feeling nauseous. And she's like, oh no, if Jaclyn is gonna throw up, like we're in transition. This is what she does every time. And I throw
Yeah.
up, and we're like, oh no, fill the tub. And so thankfully we didn't have a birth pool. We had like a big soaker tub. So it was a lot quicker to fill up.
So you're able to get it full. Right.
Yeah. And so we filled that up. I hopped in, and then it was right to, a few contractions, and then water breaking, and then baby's head, and then baby's body. And my husband, that one was so quick. My husband hopped in, didn't have time for his didn't have time for his swim shorts. So he jumped in flannel pajamas and socks and the whole thing. So I have those pictures.
The socks. Oh no, the socks.
He was just like, I guess I'm catching a baby. And he did. And I just love those pictures. And I made my mom run to the other room to wake up the children. I had 3 young children for that one. And everyone's like disheveled. But that birth I felt really good after. But there was a bit of a like, I'd almost say like shell shock. Like, what just happened? Like I went to bed. I woke up at midnight. Contractions started, and I have a baby by 4 a.m. Like, where was my like prep? And part of that too was I was really present. I wasn't in labor land, and labor land is like a beautiful gift. And
it is.
To kind of be like really present of, okay, now I'm having these contractions. Okay, next is gonna this is gonna happen. Next, this is gonna happen. Right. And at this point, like I've been a doula since I was pregnant with my second when I started my doula training and started attending births through that pregnancy and then after. And so I'd been a doula for must have been 4 years at that point. Like I had attended births, like I understand birth. And so to be very much like in that mindset of, oh, I'm at this stage and this is my assessment, which was kind of a gift of being our first free birth. Because again, we had that kind of responsibility of looking and watching.
Right.
But it went really smoothly and was really beautiful. But there was that tinge of like, oh, okay, that was fast. So that's kind of my first experience. It was the second experience that was the really hard one.
Okay.
That threw me for a loop.
So what about? Yeah, go ahead. I mean, honestly, the only real tidbit I got out of the first one is like, okay, hack for precipitous birthers, have a soaker tub instead of a birth pool.
That is actually my hack because that plays into the next birth. So the next birth,
does it?
We've moved from that first homestead, and we're living in an RV, and we're pregnant with our 5th child. We move into the RV.
Been there, done that one too.
And then we're parked at my parents' house, and
it is kind of creepy how similar our stories are. I'm just saying.
It is, yeah. I've enjoyed that about getting to know you of like, oh yeah, that's like, yeah. Anyways, so we were doing that. So we were out of place. We were in between places. It's not my home. It wasn't like a childhood home or anything. My parents had moved there just recently. And so it wasn't as comfortable, like, anyways, but we made the plan to birth in their house. And so we did have a birth pool from a previous home birth, and that was the plan. Okay, we're going to fill up the pool, and we had it blown up ahead of time, but to like save us time, right? Because it's probably going to be quick again, another 4 hours or whatever. And the start of that one was funny because all of my labors have started in the night, every single one of them.
Mhm.
And so my mom was having trouble sleeping, and she ended up taking something to help her sleep in the daytime. She wouldn't take it at night because she was worried about me going into labor.
Right.
So she takes something during the day, and then that's when I go into labor. And so I had to
Of
wake her
course
up
it
out of like
is.
a very deep sleep. I'm like,
Oh, no.
it's like, okay, mom. And she's like, what time is it? I was like, it's 5 in the evening. And she's like, what? Where'd the day go? Like she'd slept for a few hours. And so
Uh-huh.
that was really fun. But yeah, so it went very quickly from that contraction starting, waking my mom up, and then starting to fill the tub, and my husband's rushing around trying to fill the tub, and I'm starting to feel nauseous. And we're all sitting in the living room watching a movie with the kids, and I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw up in this popcorn bowl. But because it was
Oh,
happening
no.
so fast, and like my husband's out running around, and my mom's kind of like looking at me like, what's going on? I felt really like disconnected and
Mhm.
not that same like labor rhythm. It was just so weird.
Right.
And I felt like I was surrounded by my support. Excuse me, but I felt very like not tended to. Um
Right. Do you think
just
it's
because
is
it's like,
that Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
oh, well, that was just like part of that, why that birth was so intense, was feeling
Yeah.
like not that like face to face hands on that I'm used to.
Right.
Uh, and like my husband and my mom are an amazing birth team. Like we're a good team to birth babies together. And so it was just very strange. And yeah, so my husband's filling up the pool, hot water tank empties. So it suddenly starts getting cold. It's only a third way full up. It's kind of just like lukewarm. And I'm like, I'm getting in anyways because I need this. Like, I'm about to push this baby out. And
Yeah.
I was so present. Like, I could feel my baby move down through my bones and was like,
Mhm.
okay, I can't sit on the ball anymore. Like, and that was
Right.
the weirdest thing, to like be so present in it. And then, so I hopped in the like lukewarm pool and then birthed her and then pulled her up out of the pool because I was like, this is too cold for us. And then we got
Right.
out. And so, like, all the things just were very incohesive, I guess, of how
Right.
usually our births go. And being very present, it being an hour and 45 minutes since my first contractions.
Mhm.
And then I get out and I get on the couch, and then my placenta like took a long time and was kind of stuck. So my mom actually did help. We called up a midwife friend who I've always had her number of, and she was like, okay, just like hold it, like use a towel. Anyways, it was very gentle. It had already detached, but because I was laying in a different position, usually I'm in the tub when I birth my placentas.
Mhm.
And again, just like another weird thing. And then I happened to have, within 12 hours, I had a uterine prolapse when going to the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
And and so call up the midwife again of like, oh no. And she's like, go rest, go lay down. Don't do anything. And then it did go back in on its own very like quite easily. But so all of those things made that birth feel traumatic. And I didn't realize
Yeah.
how traumatic it was until I started talking about birth. I love birth. I've been talking about birth since I was in high school because my sisters were having babies. Like, I love birth. I love giving birth. I've always loved it. But
Mhm.
that one left me like, I don't know if I can do this again. Like, that was so
Mhm.
intense. I didn't like how I felt after. And, we would love to have more babies, but I don't know if I can. And so
Yeah.
that's the like traumatic side. And I could feel myself, like those trauma responses of like your heart racing and your voice, like the whole things, and I start sweating. Like every time I talk about birth, I'm like, this is not me. Like I've heard some crazy birth
Yeah.
stories, and I've attended women who have had to go in for C-sections. I've been to hard births and these types of things, but to feel that myself in what would on paper look like a really healthy, easy birth that was quick,
Right.
the emotional side of it was so different. And the way my body, like, interpreted that, I guess, in the where
Right.
we were in life. And so that set me up for needing to do a lot of work in this 6th pregnancy and birth, which the Lord showed
Yeah.
up and just blessed me amazingly. And I had a 2-hour birth that was in no way traumatic, and that was super
Yeah.
peaceful and wonderful.
I love
So,
that. I love that. So first I just want to
yeah.
say, like, I think that it's super common to hear that precipitous birth, leaving a woman shell shocked, having that like kind of trauma response, and then also um, discounting that reaction because it was good on paper, because it was like, well, I have a healthy mom and a healthy baby and nothing was wrong. It was just fast, and feeling bad that your body's having a trauma response. And I actually really love, there is I'm trying to remember who said it. She wrote, there's a recent book by, I can't remember her name. I'm so bad at names. I'm sorry. It's like she wrote one of either the 4th trimester or the first 40 days. I want to say it's the 4th trimester. And then she wrote another book about about trauma. But her definition, once I figure that out, I'll put it in the show notes below. But
Okay.
she wrote like a definition of trauma as anything that's too much, too fast, too soon. And I just loved that picture because it's not about the event being traumatic. It's about whether you were ready for the event, right? It's like, how were you then cared for even after the event or within the event? And that really, so somebody can go through the exact same experience. And even you're saying you had 2 births that were the same amount of time. And we'll get to why the second one wasn't leaving you feeling traumatized. But you could have the same things happen, but whether it was too much, too fast, too soon, and how you were cared for in and amongst and afterwards determines whether we have a traumatic bodily response and mental and emotional response and even a spiritual response to that, whether we're calling it trauma or not. So I just love how simplified that version or that definition is. And I think it kind of gives women some freedom to be like, okay, it doesn't have to be this, it doesn't have to be, I had to transfer or a mortality or morbidity issue. It is, was it too fast, too much, too soon for you? And then that validates that experience you're having so that then you can deal with it and, look at it and heal from it. Whereas otherwise we're just kind of going, yeah, it wasn't traumatic, even though my body is saying otherwise, and we're just ignoring it, which is then building. And then we're not getting to go to Jesus and get healing. Right. So anyway, I've heard that story, not obviously not your specific story, but just that story of too fast birth being really like shell shocked, trauma leaving. So I would love to hear how, and actually, like, how did you work through that? Tell our listeners, how did you work through that and get this same time span of a birth, but it not leaving you shell shocked?
Yeah, well, I first actually recognizing that I was having a trauma response, and I was like, oh, okay, this is what's happening with my body. Like, I've not had a lot of those responses before. And so recognizing that there is work that needs to be done and being really honest with myself of like, okay, my thoughts are saying that I don't want to do this again or I can't do this again. And my heart has always been to have more babies, which it wouldn't be wrong to stop because of that. But I knew that what I was experiencing after that birth, and for like, I guess almost 2 years after, through my next pregnancy and everything, was that, okay, this isn't what my heart really wants, like to stop having to not have any more babies, but like I know that this is something I need to work through. Like I knew it wasn't the truth of what my life was like now, if that makes sense.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
yeah, realizing, and not even like a conviction, like I love babies. Like I want to have
You wanted
lots
more
of them.
babies. That's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to
And
qualify that.
yeah. Um, and it wasn't like, oh, I was feeling pressured to have more or anything. Like I really was very excited to become pregnant again. But I immediately knew, okay, I really need to work on these things. I even stopped during that time. I stopped listening to birth podcasts. I stopped like engaging in that. And it was because of things that happened through the last few years of
Right.
politics and drama that made me want to speak out about birth again, because some pretty crazy things were happening in our province. And so I took to Instagram and started posting. And then I was like, wait, I need to actually plug in and deal with this birth stuff. Because
Okay.
I know I'm
Yeah.
called to birth work, and I need to figure it out before I start moving forward. And
Right.
so part of that healing was kind of re-engaging with my love of birth and the truth about birth and God's design for birth. And yeah, whether that was podcasts and the Believing Birth Keepers Circle group was really a huge part of that, and meeting Brooke and then
Yeah.
meeting you. That was a really big part of my process. Making plans, like practically, okay, this is, and you had these questions. I was asking you, how do
Yeah.
I slow down labor? Like, how do I make
Yeah.
this not crazy? Why, and then asking the question, why did it cause a trauma response where other births that are fast don't? And that's
Right.
where I saw that, wow, okay, so this was the context that this birth was in, and this is why it was hard, and this is, I'm no longer here and I'm no longer in that space, and we've grown in this way, and kind of really understanding that my body reacted here because I did feel unsafe and
Right.
uncared for, I guess.
Right.
At
To go
no
back
fault
to
of
for
like,
the listeners, like you were in that home that it wasn't yours. It was your parents' home. It was a new
yeah,
home and you're in that transition. Yeah.
yeah. So being in that, yeah, the transition of life and all of those things just created this unsettling in my spirit that made space for this trauma response, I guess. That was how my body reacted.
Yeah.
So understanding um, that my body didn't fail me, that nothing, that, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what else, but just really understanding it in depth of how
Yeah.
that is different than what the next one will be like. And that became my journey of, okay, what's the next one going to be like? And
Right.
that was a very interesting plan. I realized, okay, we frequently drive an hour or 2 hours to church or to groceries, or like we're pretty rural. So I need to have a bag packed at all times in case I go into
Yeah.
labor. I don't want to be caught off guard in case I'm driving or my husband's driving or whatever. And
Right.
so I made a plan and I packed a bag. I have that on my Instagram, actually, the contents of the bag that I brought with me, like my emergency birth kit, which
Yeah.
if you scroll through my Instagram posts, you can see I'm like, everyone should have one of these bags. I
Yeah.
have a friend from Uganda. My friend in Uganda, she uh, was telling a story about her birthing, and that the women carry around a birth kit because they'll just like wander off and have a baby. Like it's very chill, and they
Yeah.
just want to have the supplies. So they send them out with little kits. And I was like, I feel like we need more, like women to be more equipped. I have friends that have had babies in their cars unexpectedly. And,
Right.
so that was one of those steps of, okay, I'm prepared. I have my things. And then envisioning my birth. Okay, the things that are different. We're in our home. My mom's staying with us. We don't have to fill up a birth pool. I have a tub again. So we actually ended up getting the same tub that we had in my birth at the school, like that first
Okay.
very fast birth. And that was just such a God thing. Like we picked up the same tub that is awesome and giant and wonderful.
Right.
And so then that was like, okay, well, that's quick to fill. Like it's not going to take all this time. We can easily fill that. No problem. And then just really going through the practical steps. But so I went through the practical stuff. I re-engaged with my birth community and started hearing birth stories and listening, and I guess like almost not desensitizing, but just re-engaging in a way that felt
Yeah.
comfortable, and safe and encouraging,
Yeah.
and pointed me to, yes, this is good. Yes, this is good.
Right.
My body is saying this is scary, but that reaction was lessening over time. Although even going up to this, my previous birth year, it's 40 weeks, and or I'm 40 weeks pregnant, and I have my things laid out, and I still was like, there's still some fears here. There
Yeah.
are still some nervousness. Like what if I'm just walking around and suddenly have a baby? Like I had that nervousness of I'm going
Right.
to get blindsided again, and how to protect myself from that. And then I actually ended up getting sick, but I thought I was going into pre-labor or going into labor. Like I was having a backache and then a couple contractions, which I usually don't have outside of actual labor. And so then we got the whole bathroom all set up, and like the lights up. My husband put little lights up, and we put all the supplies out. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like it just really brought that peace to be ready. And that was a little gift, that helped my birth, this next one, because every time I went into that bathroom, it was all set up already. And I was like, right, I'm going to give birth in this room and it's going to be good. And I just kept kind of telling
Yeah.
myself that. And actually,
I
I
love
think a
that.
week or two, yeah, a week or two previously, might have been maybe a few more weeks, but I really wasn't excited for labor. And this was the first time I had never been excited for labor. And even after doing all that work, there was still this unsettling. And a friend was talking about beeswax candles. And I was like, hey, I'm going to use my beeswax candles. I just bought some during my birth. I love beeswax candles and I've never had any before and I love them. And then I suddenly had this moment of, I get to give birth again and I'm excited and I'm going to have candles. It just was
I love it.
the
It's just that
silliest thing.
simple. Yeah.
And it was the first time I realized, and I didn't realize that I wasn't excited, but at that moment I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I am excited again to give birth and this is going to be good. And then after that, I still had to kind of work through those fears and got the bathroom set up, all those, but just those little moments. And then when it started and I got right in my tub. My plan was to lay down right away and try to chill everything out. And I took my rescue remedy, that homeopathic spray that I love, just helped me calm
Yeah.
down, got in my tub and laid there. And usually I've never labored laying down before. And so I was
Mm.
laying in my tub, but it's a big tub. So I'm like swooshing back and forth, and you had actually prayed for me about it being like the peace of the river, that it's just going to be a gentle river flowing. And I had that imagery in my head. So thank you for that. And that's how it went. Like I just swooshed the water back and forth and I was present, but I was like actively checking out in a good way. Like if that
Yeah.
makes sense. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, we're
Actively
good.
just going in. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd started saying some things in my head, some birth affirmations that I think I got from Brooke, or was writing them out. I was just thinking through some things and really letting go. And then I'm like, okay, knees together, feet apart. That's how you get a baby through the pelvis. Like all these things, that these little movements, and things were slow and good. And then I had a moment of, after hearing another birth story, I was reminded, in this other birth story, she had said she felt like she needed to get up but didn't want to, but then it kind of made labor go longer because she didn't, and she felt like the Lord was telling her. And then that came into my head, and I was like, oh, the Lord is telling me I need to get up. I could stay here, or I could just like face it and get up. And I knew if I got up that we'd be like birthing the baby really quick.
Right.
So I got up on my knees, and then I felt nauseous, and then I went through transition. And then I had told, for the first time, I really wanted my mom and my husband to tell me to slow down during the pushing phase, because I tend to do that very quickly because it's all very fast. And I'm like, okay, let's just be done. I've always pushed out a baby in just a couple pushes.
Right.
And so I was like, hey, I really want to slow down this time. And so my mom lovingly and aggressively said, slow down, Jaclyn, which is just perfect because I asked her to tell me that. And
Right.
I was like, I can't. Anyways, but I did. His head, or my water broke, and then the head came out. And then I did actually, for the first time, move between. I went from a different position, still in the tub. And I like held his head, which again is nothing I had ever done before. So it was a really different pushing phase. And I was present, but I was like peacefully present instead of being like, what is the, trying to measure things or predict. And then he was born, and I just sat back and relaxed with my husband. He did have his swim shorts on. He knew right away to get them on this time. And my children were all gathered around, and it was great. And then my placenta was burst, and then I tucked into bed, and it was generally good. We were sick. That's and my beautiful. Husband had a hand injury, so it still was kind of crazy outside of it. But the birth was this beautiful, peaceful thing, and I was so well cared for. And again, on paper, it looks very much the same as the previous birth. The labor pattern was pretty much the same, and yet it was a totally different experience. So those are my birth stories, my experience of those. So
I love that. Yeah. Well, what I hear is like you're saying, like it's the same on paper almost, but the preparation and the mindset and even your support, even though they're the same support, they were prepared for a fast birth. And so, everyone, there was a preparation and a presence that was different, as well as that like perspective. Look at that. We're in a 3 Ps. It's like we're writing a sermon here or something. So I love that. And I think that's a beautiful thing to keep in mind, that, it's not even about, like I'm always saying, it's not about the outcome. It's about how we, submit to this transformation that's before us, this birthing of this baby before us. And I love that like preparation and the presence and perspective that you really just were going to like, you know what, I'm going to let this be what it is, and prepare for what I can, right? But just submitting to, you know what, I know that when I get up, it's going to be fast. So I'm going to accept that, which is really kind of going back to that trauma definition of too much, too fast, too soon. You prepared. Okay, it's going to be fast. Most likely, history kind of, says that it will likely be fast again. So how can I make it not too fast for me? Which brings in that preparation, right? That it's, not too much coming at me if I'm saying, all right, when I get up, this is what we're doing. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to have a baby right now. Then it couldn't be too much, right? Because you were you were just positioning to surrender and receive. And I think that that's just such a beautiful way of looking at it and preparing yourself.
It was a total gift. And this pregnancy and birth was much more spiritually, it required a lot more from me spiritually, and to dig deep, which again is just when I found both of you who are both amazingly spiritual women that just point me to Jesus over and over again. Like this, the Lord knew what I needed, and the work wasn't just, okay, I need to do like EMDR or whatever therapy. It's not, I don't just need to be working on this or just do that. It's a very like all encompassing, which I think almost every pregnancy and birth prep is.
Absolutely.
And, I was just telling this client that she was feeling a need to surrender and that she's been working on it, but she's not yet like full term. And I was like, it'll come again. It's okay if those fears come up again. It's okay that you need to process again. And that's why being full term feels so like heavy and vulnerable and emotional, is because you have to go through that again to surrender again. You can't get that work done in the first trimester. You're like, okay, I'm good to go for labor now because I like did my praying and my quiet times and my this and that way before. It's like, no, you need to be brought to that vulnerable place. And even up at 40 weeks, and my baby was born at 40 weeks in one day, so we're like right to the wire there of still feeling those fears and knowing that it would be okay, that I was okay the last time and I'll be okay this time. And my husband really reminded me, we're a different situation. This is a different birth. You've done this before. You can do it. And his words were just...
So that conversation was at 40 weeks and you had baby the next day?
It wasn't quite like that, but very close. I was...
Very close, right in that spot.
Very close, yeah. Of that final week of... And then a bit of that pre-labor when I thought I was going into labor, but I was just gonna be super sick. And then it just prepared me. But it was right down to the wire of, okay, I'm still feeling these fears. What is this gonna look like? And then
I love how being sick ended up being even a little mercy for you, and being able to prepare you for what you were kind of ultimately being afraid of, even though being sick was no fun.
Yeah, being sick was not fun. My mom had to do tons of work and take care of all of us, so I'm glad she was there. Oh, baby. But even in that like hard thing of being sick, the whole family, it really was God's protection and care for us. And yeah, the Lord just showed up over and over again. And I'm really grateful for that.
He's so good like that. So good like that.
So what were your precipitous labors like?
Yeah. So, okay. So a little bit of my backstory is that I had 3 really long births. My first 3 were incredibly long. My first being a prolonged birth of 50 hours, and then my third being the longest at 72. So I had really long labors, and actually my second was on paper looked kind of short, being only 6 hours because I let them break my waters. That's a whole other story. But I had literally been in labor for like 2 weeks, just constant, every 5 minutes having a contraction for 2 weeks. And I was just done. It was like, I don't know what's going on, why it's not, and it was all midway out. I mean, like it felt like active labor, but it was not making any changes. So it was called prodromal labor. But that's, it was just very much grueling. So I had these really long labors. All of them either had excessive amounts of prodromal labor All of them went way past dates. And so all of a sudden I'm, at 40 weeks with my fourth baby. And that's my like backstory in my head. I'm going to go over dates. I'm going to, I'm going to go into prodromal labor a couple times. It's going to be long. Okay. That's what I'm preparing for. And fast forward, this child just comes at on his due date. And he had been flipping breech, transverse, head down, breech, transverse, head down, breech, 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 transverse, breech, head down, transverse, breech, like just spinning. And the kid's still not stopped spinning. He's 8 years old and he's still spinning, but he's still just going. But so there was just a lot of that, but it never really had much prodromal labor. And so I had like one little tiny bout that was like, okay, we're having some contractions. Okay, whatever, gone. So then the night before I had gone for a long walk, just felt very much like I need to walk right now. And that was something because of the way my specific body is. And that's a whole other trying to like stay on topic here. But I can't walk at the end of pregnancy. Otherwise, I end up with a story like my first 3 of these really long, lots of prodromal labor stuff. So I actually can't allow my babies to engage because I have a cervix and uterus that's a little shaped differently. So anyway, I had not been walking. I had not been doing anything that would kind of allow him to engage, but I just had this like very strong urge. I needed to just go for a nice, decent walk that night. And so I did, just followed that instinct and went to bed. And then at 4 a.m, I woke up to like one really strong contraction. And I heard Holy Spirit very clearly. It was the first contraction, wakes me up, and Holy Spirit says, call your midwife. And I was like, why? like it's one contraction. Like we's okay. Like I got 3 days if this is it. So, and then I get up and I go to the bathroom and I have another one in between walking to my bed into the bathroom, another really strong one. And I hear him say, call your midwife. And I was like, okay, like, maybe she's just like not sleeping, or maybe she's at another birth and she needs to kind of prepare. Like that's what it is, right? Like that's, I'll call her to let her know. And I have some bloody show, which was also a little like, I never have bloody show until like baby is like coming. And so I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And so I call her and I'm still convinced that like, I've got days. Okay. Like this is not happening right now. And I call my midwife and she's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, like I'll, and she's about 45 minutes away that she lives about. And so she's like, okay, cool. And then I have another contraction and she's talking and I shushed her. And she was like, oh, I'm getting in the car. Because I was like,
Yeah.
shh. Okay, yep, no problem. Come in right now. And I was like, I don't think you need to come. I just felt like I was supposed to call you. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Coming now. So she gets there. Long story short, well, actually, short story shorter. He comes in an hour and 33 minutes from the first contraction to baby on my chest. And I'm really thankful that I had called my midwife because the birth was really fast for him too. And he actually crashed postpartum. And so I was really thankful because she was there because I really did actually enter labor land and I don't know if it was because I had these kind of like little markers of like, you need to call your midwife. Wow, I have some bloody show. I just kind of went into okay, we're doing this. We're just going to turn out the lights. We're going to turn on my music, play my birth playlist. And I just really embraced it. And I think that was just really divine because God's presence was just there. And it was one of those births where I was reading scripture in between contractions and then just really going into this deep worship during contractions. And so I had a beautiful labor land experience and just really went deep into it. And it was really incredibly healing because of some things that had happened in my past too. So it was just like God was really present. And she actually, so birth pool story. So she's in my living room trying frantically to set up the birth pool because she had been my midwife the last time and she knew how much I loved the water birth. And actually, I had kept telling her, yes, I did love the water birth. You're right. And I would love that. But every time I picture him, I feel like I'm going to be like, I keep seeing all fours and like squatting. Like that's what I keep seeing. And she was like, okay, but you really love the water birth. So I'll just try and set it up for you. And if you are in the throes and decide you want it. So she's in my living room. I'm in my master bedroom. She's in my living room trying to get this set up. And I've got my husband, Brandon's arm just like wrapped to my body. Like it was like not him. It was just his arm. Like I'm just like laying on the floor holding his arm. And I realize all of a sudden, because this whole time I'm like, this is just prodromal labor. It's going to go away. Like, it's like, even though I was fully in labor land, I still kept thinking this is going to be forever because that had been my experience. And so I'm like holding onto his arm and then I got nauseous and I went, oh crap, I'm in labor. Like, I'm having a baby right now. And she like light bulb moment. And so I tell Brandon, go get Nadine. And he's like, you're going to have to let go of my arm. And I was like, no, go get Nadine. And he's like, so he's like got his arm just stretched out. I'm like, like in hands and knees with my chest like really on the floor and holding his arm, like my head like on his arm. And he's like, and I was like, just call her. And he's like, hon, her phone is right next to me. And I was like, then go get her and leave your arm. So he like slips out of his arm out from underneath me, runs to the hallway and calls her, and then runs back and puts his arm back where he's like, I was like, that poor man, I'm so sorry. Like, just cut your arm off. I don't know what the problem is. Yeah. So he gets back into his rightful place. and she comes in the room and she's like, the birth pool is not going to be ready. And I was like, I know, let's go to the shower. And so I turned from hands and knees into a squat and my shower is maybe like 2 feet away. Okay. Cause like my master bedroom, we were at the edge of the bed, which is right in front of the bathroom door. And so she was kind of thinking, if you want water, we can just go to the shower. It's like 2 steps. And I turn into a squat and I say, he's coming. And she's like, I know, I have his head, like he's here. And so she, like one push heads out, next, like just all one thing. Like he just comes on out and goes straight to my chest. And so that was just like incredibly fast compared to my others. But it was so peaceful and so like worship filled. And I really think that it was because of that, that like intentional prepping for the playlist there. I had just like really curated birth worship or worship that I was going to be on his birth playlist and tons of scriptures that had just been spoken over this baby. And it was just so peaceful. And so that, even though it was so fast and it was just kind of like blindsiding at how fast it was. Cause like in my mind, I was in labor for like 15 minutes. Like everything else was kind of like, it's going to end. This is just prodromal. We're not really in labor. I don't know why Nadine is even here. Like, this is ridiculous. Everybody just go back to sleep. But also like, let me dive deeply into my scripture and let me worship really quick because this is intense. But also this is going to stop. Kind of similar to my 6th baby, just in denial. But yeah, like it was just the presence of the Lord that really grounded me. And I think that's what made it not like surprising, but it was literally maybe 15 minutes tops that I was like, oh, I am in labor. This is really, so there was only 15 minutes of that I knew that we were having a baby. So it was very fast, even in my mind, as well as from, an hour and 33 minutes. Then my next one was like, okay, this is probably going to be fast. We obviously figured out why I had such long labors. And so now I know that my body is going to have a baby, because that was the pattern. Actually, in retrospect, I kept having these really, really, really long early labor stages. And then as soon as I would actually slip over into a 4 centimeters, where my cervix was in the right spot and enough to be where the baby's head could actually put pressure on and open, then I would have a baby really quickly. And so I would go from 4 to baby incredibly fast, but all just forever of active early labor. So once I figured out how not to have the incredibly long early labor, I just now have switched to precipitous. So with Abby, my 5th, it was very similar. Kind of, actually, the Lord was gracious and told me the night before I was going to have the baby that I was going to have the baby. And so I said, I was just I was going to bed, and I looked at my husband. I was like, we're going to have her tonight. Wasn't having any issue, any contractions, nothing. The Lord just told me. And so I was like, we need to set up the birth pool. We need to just get things ready. Let's set it up now. And so we did, and I went to sleep, and I woke up, and I was in labor, called the midwife. She was 2 hours away. So I knew I needed to call her at the first moment. And I had kind of prepared mentally that she wasn't going to make it. But this one, about towards the end of, right when my water broke and I knew she was coming down and I could feel her coming down, all of a sudden this anxiety hit me really heavily. And the midwife wasn't there yet. My birth pool was not filled. There was an issue because they went to start filling it, and the water had filled with rust from the bottom of the water heater, because my dad had thought it'll be faster to fill it from the bottom of the water heater instead of I don't know. And so he, being, trying to be helpful and trying to get the hottest water into that fastest, just dumped rust all into my water. So I'm sitting on the edge of my couch looking at the birth pool going, it's filled with rust and I need to be in the water.
Oh.
And why am I not in the water? And this is not okay. And just all of a sudden the doubt and fear and and my midwife's not here yet. And I don't know if maybe I can't do this. And just the and my best friend and birth photographer had missed the first call, and then she got the call, but there was I want to say there was snow on the ground or something that had prevented her drive and made it a lot longer. And because she actually ended up having to turn around to go back to get her camera because she was so frantic that she missed the first call, that she just got into the car and then drove about 10 minutes away and was I didn't get my camera. So she turned around. So it was she wasn't there yet. And, it was just all the things that we had prepared weren't together, even though the Lord had told me we were going to have a baby. And so it just felt all of a sudden, just this wave of anxiety. And all of a sudden I knew I was I need to have the midwife here. And it's not because I can't do it, but there's something I need to have the midwife here. And so I texted her speed, come now. And she ends up, my waters break. The midwife walks through the door and I'm pushing, and she gets there, and I actually had a little bit of a sticky shoulder situation. And so I think maybe I knew that was coming. And so she was there to and she even later on was it really wasn't too big of a deal. And I think that, I thought she had done something internally, and later on in conversation, she was no, I didn't. She was a little sticky for a minute, but I checked for a cord to make sure that's what it was, that it wasn't what was holding her up. And then she just rotated really and I think maybe I moved and she rotated, but like between her checking at the cord at the same time, I thought she had, had to actually done something. So I guess in retrospect, really she, I didn't necessarily need her to be there. But just all the anxiety hit really fast out of nowhere. And, and then baby got kind of stuck and not really, she didn't have to do anything to relieve it. And yeah, so that one felt a little like, it's funny because my first story, he actually crashed. It was a little too fast for him. So he actually ended up needing a round of CPR and we ended up having to transfer. And his whole story is a little long because it's like this postpartum stuff. But his birth was so peaceful that hers, I actually had more like trauma response from, even though he's the one who actually had an issue. And so that always was like, trauma is so weird in the sense of like, why are we, like this one is the traumatic one on paper. This is the one where my baby needed CPR and we needed a helicopter ride. And this is the one where there might have been an issue, but it all worked itself out and it was fine. And yet I was left very like just shell shocked. Like, why is this, and really it was the difference of the, like the anxiety came in and the things that we had prepared were not set. And, that was kind of when I started going, okay, what was the preparation that I could actually do that I can depend on, because I was trying to prepare things that I thought I could have control over, but couldn't, versus the things that we can have control over. And so there was a lot of lessons and beautiful things that came out of that. And so the sixth time, this one, so other than that first precipitous birth, all of my babies have come at 41, 42, and 43. And then he was on his birth date, the wild card. And then all the girls have come at like 42 and 43 and 41 in 2 days, those kinds of things. So my sixth baby, I was expecting, another 42 weeker. And I actually was having my midwife fly in to see me from Utah to Arkansas. And this was 2020. This was, we had just lost our RV in an electrical fire and then got in at 30 weeks, got a brand new RV, just completely by the work of the Lord at like 33 weeks, got a bunch of things, kind of had some crazy things with different midwives, with a midwife that I thought was going to be attending and it wasn't. And it was just an entire crazy adventure. And I finally ended up getting my friend in Utah on board to be my midwife because it was like, I could do this unassisted. I just don't want to. Like, I just want someone to care for me like I care for women. Like, I desired that, like, just the wise woman, to be there and say, I've been here and this is, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to be in your midwife brain. You can just have your baby. And it felt like I didn't need a midwife as much as I needed someone to be the midwife so that I wouldn't be, not that I needed one. And so, because I knew that I would just be in my midwife brain. So, basically I have this time where I am, I'm 38 and 5. And it occurs to me that night, all of a sudden, like, I don't have any postpartum snacks. And this is a very important thing all of a sudden. Like, it was one of those, like, life or death. I need postpartum snacks and I need them now. And like, why don't we have this prepared? I have 4 weeks, but like, it's now important that I have these. And my midwife is flying in like 2 days before my due date. And we're at 38 and 5. And I'm like, I need to get the things for her. Like I was going to make her little snack bag, welcome basket thing and my postpartum snacks. And I live in this little bitty town that doesn't have like a food store that I normally eat food from. So I was like, it's late at night. It's now, I have to get them, and I have to get them now. So I guess I'm going to go to Walmart and I'm going to get some food. And then I'll just go tomorrow to get like high quality stuff, but I'll just get some basics at Walmart that we can make for postpartum snacks. And so my husband's like, okay, whatever. So he puts the kids to bed on his own so that I can take over this like very important mission all of a sudden. And I go to the store and I go into labor at Walmart. and so I'm like checking out going, oh, I need to like get home now, like now. And so I was like, but it's just prodromal. I'm 38 and 5. It's fine. But like, I'm like having to stop in the aisle of the store and kind of moaning a little bit. And then I get to like the self-checkout and the lady's like, are you okay? Can I, I'm very big pregnant, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, can't answer her. And I'm just shaking my head like, yes, leave me alone. And then this like teenager, as I'm like checking out and I'm walking out the doors and I'm go, oh, and he's like, are you okay? Can I help? I was like, I'm fine. I just need to get to my truck. Like, just please leave me alone. Like, I don't even remember what I said, but I just was like shaking my head yes, and like, just don't call an ambulance on me. like please. And so he just kind of looks at me very concerned, but like walks away against his better judgment. And I get into my truck and I realize that I've had like 2-minute apart contractions. Like I'm like, okay, we're having some contractions, but this is just prodromal. This is not happening because I am 38 and 5. So obviously, if you're hearing me, I have a lot of denial in my stories. So I call Brandon. I tell him, hey, having some pretty, like I'm having to moan through them. And I even like am recognizing that I am feeling cervical change. And I was just like, obviously it's not time to have this baby yet. Like, so I'm just going to, when I get home, if you could unload the car, I'm going to go straight into mom's house and take a bath so that I can slow these down. If you could make me a cup of chamomile tea and maybe bring in my skull cap, and like, I don't want to do this all night. I am not in the mood. I just wanted to get my snacks, And he's like, okay, sure. So he dutifully does all the things that I've asked of him because he is just amazing. And I go in and I take this warm bath and he brings me my chamomile and my skull cap. And I'm like taking these tinctures and slowly, I'm going to slow this down. I'm going to stop it. And I call my midwife, and somewhere in there, I'm like, these really feel like I'm moaning. That's not normal for prodromal labor, but also like, this can't be right. And so she's like, okay, well, I guess I'm in Utah. So if it is, I'm not making it. And how do you feel about that? And I was like, I mean, it is what it is. It's fine. I just didn't want to be in my midwife brain. I didn't want to analyze myself. And she's like, well, you can just set me up on a tripod and I can analyze from the outside. And I was like, okay, that works. That's good. That's fine. So I was like, immediately I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll have peace. We'll just put her on the tripod and I can deal with that. I'll let her do the observation. And so I'm like taking my bath. My dad, it's 10 o'clock at night, and my dad is like wanting to go to bed. So he wanted to take a shower and go to bed. And so I get out of the bath for him to be able to use his own bathroom. And I go and sit on the couch with my mom. And I'm like, it's going to stop. It's fine. See, they're like now only like 20 minutes apart, which is like never my pattern. I always start 5 minutes apart and then go to 2 minutes apart and then I have a baby. Like it's just, very fast. Even when I had prodromal labors, it's always 5 minutes apart. So I was like, see, look, they're 20 minutes, 30 minutes apart now. Like, see, I told you it's because of the herbs. And so I was like, see, I told you this is all just, it's just prodromal, but like, could you call Brandon inside? Sure. Like, so he can watch you have prodromal labor on my couch. Yeah, not a problem. Okay. So I call my husband in, and he and my mom are just watching me not labor on her couch, laboring on her couch. And so they space out to that 20, 30 minutes. And I'm like, see, okay, I was right. Y'all were wrong. Not that anybody actually said that I was, but they were just kind of like, nodding their head like, sure, okay, yeah, that's what you say. Both internally knew, but they were being very good birth people. And they were just watching and like letting me believe whatever it was that I needed to believe, even though they both knew we were about to have a baby. And so I was like, since it's spaced out, I'm just going to go to bed now. And I go back out to the RV and I climb into bed. It's like midnight. And I get some good sleep. And my husband's laying there. My mom says she got into bed with my dad and was like, we're going to have a grandbaby in a couple hours. So she knew. She had been in all my labors. She knew what was happening. And I woke up. So I slept, and I know that I had a couple that like woke me up, but I had taken a ton of skull cap, a ton of it. And I just kept like just convinced. I don't know what I was doing, but just chamomile tea and skull cap. And so I think that's the only reason I got some sleep, and that they slowed down as much as they did. And I woke up at like 4:30, almost 5. And immediately was like, oh, okay, this is real. We're having a baby. Went in the bathroom, had the bloody show. All of a sudden knew. It was like, okay, we're having a baby. I need the water now. So I went back into my mom's house, which I hadn't been planning a water birth, but all of a sudden I just knew this baby needs water, like badly. Like this baby cannot be born on the land. This baby has to be born in water. And so I go and I get in her bathtub and I tell my husband to set up the birth pool because she had this like tiny little bathtub. And I was like, I can't get comfortable. There's no way this is going to happen, but you need to get it set up. And so he is setting it up, and, the water ends up being too cold because my 6-year-old at the time had taken over the like filling of the water, but nobody told him to make sure that it stayed warm. So when the hot water went through, he started filling it with cold water. So I'm like, I'm about to have a baby, and I get into the water and I'm like, it's so cold, but I can't get out of this water. If I get out of this water, this baby is going to come. And this baby has made it clear to me. Holy Spirit has made it clear to me. They have to be born in water. And this is what's happening. So your job is to get it warm. Like yesterday. So they start, and I promise I don't sound this demanding, but this is how I tell stories. So this is the internal dialogue. So I was like, y'all, I need the water warm. I can't get out. It's very cold. Please use every kettle and pot and, crock pot and instant pot that we have between mom and me to get this water hot. So like my lovely husband and mother are just dutifully like boiling water into the pool, and it's like frantic and crazy. And I was like, I can't get out of the water, but also it's time to have this baby. And so I like just focus in on my precious 6-year-old. And I was like, baby, you're going to have to be the midwife. And he was like, I can't do that. And I was like, yes, you can. All I need you to do is say, is to be here and hold my hand and tell me I can do it if I think that I can't. And he's like, oh, I can do that. And I was like, I know. And so at one point I said, I can't do this. And he was like, yes, you can, mommy. Like, yes. Like, so good. It was so precious. And so he just stayed there. And finally I kind of knew, like I could feel baby moving down. And, I was like, baby is coming. I need everyone to stop. Like it's warm enough. Please just everybody like settle. Baby is going to be here. And so I was kind of in this place of like fighting to be in labor land, but very present because of all of the chaotic need. But it felt more important to be in the water than anything else. And so it was like a choice I was making. Like, this is what I need. So I'm just going to have to take the chaos in order to get this. And so we got my midwife up on the tripod, and there's one moment that I always think about in her birth where I had checked myself to see how far, because I was like, I felt her coming down and now she's not coming down, and it was still a little slower than I was used to. And so I checked myself and I like show her that she's like a finger tip away from, and is what I kind of show the screen. And she shakes her head because she knew what I meant without words. And then as I come out of the contraction, I was like, I couldn't feel her head. It was just a bulging bag. And she said, no, your water's going to break. Your baby's going to come down and you're going to birth your baby. And I was like, right. Yeah, that's right. And so I just like, I needed her as much as I didn't need her to be in that room. I needed her to like, no, you don't analyze. Don't, assess, like, your water's going to break, your baby's going to come down, you're going to birth your baby. And she was right. And that's what happened. And so I did, I birthed her very quickly with 2 pushes, and she came out with a nuchal elbow. So she had her whole arm around, and I reached down and I felt her head, and then I was like, it's so big. What is that? And I realized it was like her arm had come out like with her elbow in front of her chin. So it was like elbow, chin, and I'm like, if I had not been in the water, like how bad, I didn't tear or anything. And I really think it was because of the water and because I had enough control to, even though she came fast, I did have some control to slow it down that I don't think I would have even thought about being able to have on land. So it was very beautiful. It was like, this is the most important thing, is this water right now. And so it's still just a lovely, beautiful, peaceful birth story to me. And it was, so from 4:30, 5 o'clock when it hit like strong and heavy, and I knew, she was born at like 7. So another, just like, once I stopped taking the skull cap, we went into like active fast birth. So it gave me a little bit of prep time, and it gave me some, like presence of mind to surrender, which is kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but I think that's really what it comes down to. In all of these kind of precipitous birth stories is this like perspective, like, what are we doing? And, like, are we going to have a perspective of surrender and just releasing and letting it be this story that God is writing for this birth, this baby, us, or not. So yeah, anyways, that's my stories, my precipitous birth stories, at least.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I had the same,
Yeah.
It's interesting. So my birth tub, my 5th baby with the birth tub in my parents' house. Before that, I didn't really want to birth in their house. I was like, I'll just have the baby in the RV.
Right.
And my mom's the one who said, and my husband agreed, you love the water, you're going to want the water. Let's plan to have. And I was like, I don't know. I just want to maybe just be in the RV. I know it doesn't make sense. It's like, but maybe I'll just have
wanted your own
baby.
space.
I've done it before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even if I was maybe in their house to have a land baby, like I had that thought, but then I went against it. And the pool was really what was a distraction, because it was like, we have to fill up the pool, like this rush. So it's interesting. You listen to that of like, no, this isn't going to really be a pool thing. Bring the midwife over here.
Right.
And I just thought that was an interesting point for both of us there of kind of, it would have been less chaotic for me on that harder birth if we weren't rushing around with the pool. But because it was like, oh, I'm supposed to have this pool, and then they're off doing that versus so it's really interesting. I love how our stories reflect each other. Well,
it's funny. My 5th one, where I had the birth pool with the rust and stuff, I hadn't planned on having a birth pool that time, again, up until like a week prior to the baby. And I got this prophetic word from someone that I had a lot of like just respect for. And, I was like, this baby didn't come till I think 43 weeks. And so, I had a lot of people praying and a lot of people like, like just it's going to be anytime soon, and a lot of encouragement, but also a lot of people who were antsy about when I was going to have this baby. And this woman just sent me a message that said, it's time to set up the birth pool. And she was like, I heard the Lord say it's time to set up the birth pool. And because I had such respect for this woman and I believe she heard from the Lord, I was like, I wasn't planning a birth pool. I wasn't planning a water birth. Like, I don't even have a birth pool. Okay. I guess I need to I guess I need to. And so I got myself in this like tizzy of, I got the birth pool and then I set it up and now it's filled with rust. And I remember staring at it going, this isn't what the Lord said. This isn't what, and I got myself like, as if God didn't know, like it was just this like, this is what it's supposed to be. And I wasn't even going to plan it. And then he told me and I set it up early and now it's filled with rust. And and just got this like assumption, which I think sometimes when you hear the Lord so clearly, because I do feel like I have such a beautiful grace and gift of knowing my shepherd's voice. And, even though that, like he told me we were going to have a baby. And so it felt like, well, I knew, and now it's not. And what's wrong here? And I was like giving the enemy so much ground. And that I think is what really, it wasn't about water or not water. It was just like where my focus was. And I let the enemy have way too much ground, and it left me with some trauma responses. Not major ones that I was able to work through pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things. But still, it's interesting how much the water or no water decision seems to play into the like response we have.
Yeah. Yes. I love water birth, but I've
I
also
do too.
birthed babies.
I do too.
So it's like,
Yep.
I'm happy when it
Yep.
works, but yeah.
Yep. I'm 3 for 3 at this point. I've got 3 land babies, 3 water babies.
Well,
So
I would have had all of them in the water, but in our hospital with those first 2 births, they have wonderful birthing tubs in the hospital, but they haul you out of them to actually give birth. They're only for labor. It's like the weirdest policy that they won't let you actually let the baby emerge there. So they physically pick you up out of it.
Yeah. And I totally just fibbed there. I've only had 2 water births. I've only had 2 water births. It was Renee and Leela, because Abby was supposed to be, I had planned 3 water births, but she wasn't in the water. 2 hospital land births, then Holden, who came too fast, and Abby, who we had the rusty water. So I've planned 3, had 2, and the 4. Yeah. See, I don't even know. There's so many babies in person. I don't even know.
I was worried I couldn't remember my details of birth stories. I was like, let's not get into all of them because I need to refer to notes. My mom.
Yeah, I feel that. I've slept since then. I've fed too many placentas. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
Well, any big takeaways around precipitous birth? I feel like we've put in some little wisdom nuggets in between our stories while sharing 6 precipitous birth stories in a short period, in a slightly over normal time limit. But I think it's rich. But is there anything else that you would want to say to a precipitous birthing mama?
Well, first I want to tell all the mamas that be prepared if it's quick. Expect a long, lovely labor. And if it is quick, just seek out that support that you need.
Yeah.
After, if it's hard.
Right.
And I've heard amazing quick births. I had a friend who unexpectedly birthed at home last summer, and it was very quick, and she'd say pain-free and wonderful. And so that happens too, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my first precipitous birth is the one I would consider to be really pain-free, in the sense of like it was intense, but it wasn't painful. Which I think I talk a little bit more about that in the surpassing pain-free birth podcast episode. But yeah, it's yeah, I think I would say the same thing. Just I think it comes down to surrendering, and trusting that the Lord is good, and He's gone before you, and He's not shaken. He's not shaken on His throne. So beautiful, beautiful stories. I hope that some of this was some nuggets of wisdom that prepare you for your birth, long, short, or a nice, beautiful average length. May you all have anointed births that are wonderfully timed in the Lord's timing for you. So, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jaclyn. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and your wisdom. And it was just lovely to reconnect and see your face.
Yes, same. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.